Să-mi confirm dacă merge a porni stream. Nu vei auzi nimic, doar trebuie să dai start. Și atât. Go live sau... Bun, Tana, când o să fii pe ecran la mine, putem începe. Mersi?
Related to our topic. Now I would be, and I'm extremely honored to welcome today our guest speakers in order to introduce them to you, and then we will of course be able to ask them and to address some questions and to test a bit their replies. Then we will be able, of course, to take some elements from and questions from the public, from the audience. So I have for this morning together with me distinguished speakers. I have the MEP Dragoș Tudorache, member of the European Parliament. Mr. Tudorache is vice chair at the Renew Europe Group. He was chair of the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence in the Digital Age, and he is also the LIBE rapporteur on the AI Act. I have also together with me Margareta Cheșaru, Public Affairs and Social Impact Director at UiPath. Thank you very much for joining us. And we were also supposed to have today with us Alina Ujupan, member of Cabinet of Executive Vice President Margrethe Vestager, but unfortunately she called us this morning with some health-related issues, and we really wish her to get well as soon as possible because it sounded really serious. Before giving the floor to our distinguished speakers, we have here with us today Her Excellency Clara Staicu, Deputy Permanent Representative at the Permanent Representation of Romania to the European Union. And we would like very much to hear from her some preliminary remarks before trying to address the topics that we have for today. So thank you very much, Ms. Staicu, for being with us, available, and the floor is yours, please. If perhaps you can, if you hear us. Okay, otherwise then we will see, because perhaps there is a small glitch. Ironically, you know, now since we are discussing about automation, maybe automation would have a bigger role in the future, so that we do not have these this kind of technical glitches. Okay, then while waiting for Ms. Staicu to connect, let's first test the grounds with a preliminary question that I would like to address to our distinguished speakers. So we all know that at EU level, we discuss at the moment about the digital decade. So, you know, the digital targets that the European Union set to achieve by 2030. And we consider that the most challenging one would be the digital transformation of businesses. And I would like to ask our speakers today, what would be and how can actually the EU institutions help the business sector to adopt digitization, to have more digitalized measures? Because we know that the SMEs, for instance, need to have a higher level of digital intensity, of digital literacy as well. How exactly we could encourage you companies to use cloud, AI, big data? So just for us to have some preliminary remarks. So maybe we can start a bit on this ground, and then of course I will. But I see actually that Ms. Staicu is finally connected. So maybe you could start a bit to develop on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear now. Yes, great, because this time it's Wi-Fi lacking. Thank you very much, Tana, for inviting me today. I'm very honored by your invitation, and I know Europuls for quite some time already, and I think you are doing a great job. Welcome also to the other guests. I am delighted to be here today. This is an event dedicated to such an interesting and important topic, both for Romania and for Europe. I'll try to be brief, I can promise that, because it's a very exciting subject and a very important one, as I was saying. I'll try to touch about how automation is reflected in the legislation discussed at European level, particularly in the context of the digital transition that we are trying to provoke, how it affects our daily lives and how important it is to harness its full potential. Beyond its technical nature, automation is about boosting productivity, helping the European companies to adopt more flexible ways of working. It can also contribute a lot to the improvement of processes within the public sector. Moreover, intelligent automation through combined use of RPI and AI technologies can help governments to improve decision-making and service delivery to citizens. As you know, the digital transition is a fundamental objective we strive for at European level. And automation and AI are at the very core of the European legislation for the digital transition. You can see them reflected in initiatives such as the regulation laying down the rules on artificial intelligence, Data Act, the digital decade that you're going to address today, and even in the new proposal for an Act for Interoperable Europe that has been published by the Commission last week. Automation is key in essential sectors that have a huge impact on our daily lives: transport, manufacturing, customer service, finance, healthcare, and so on. I'll give an example that we are working a lot in the railway sector. Under Horizon Europe, investments are focused on the automation in order to improve the passenger and freight services and to increase capacity on the network, the reliability of the system, punctuality, and operational flexibility. But of course, there are so many other examples I can think of where intelligent automation can be used to improve public services. Emergency management, shipments, customer feedback, health insurance processing, and so on. There's a special point that I'd like to make today. Advanced technologies will create new jobs, which will require new sets of skills. Automation will accelerate the shift in the skills that the workforce needs. The actions needed for increasing the number of companies and citizens with basic and advanced digital skills will be the main topic of the ministerial political debate that we are going to have at the Telecom Council next week on the 6th of December. We need to work quickly and efficiently towards offering the necessary competencies on this market. I promise I will try to be short. So what I would finally like is to express my satisfaction that our Romanian unicorn, UiPath, enterprise RPA platform is currently used in more than 40 government agencies around the world, helping them to improve public services and control costs. This way, civil servants have more time to focus on the relevant matters and deliver quality assistance to citizens, while the software applications deal with the repetitive tasks that we all hate so much. The event today, which brings together institutional actors and experts, represent an excellent opportunity to identify together the best ways for enabling the development and use of digital solutions at a larger scale. Thus, some of them, as the RPI I was referring to, nowadays still seems a novelty, but it will probably be widely used in our daily professional lives in the years to come. I'm looking forward to reading your white paper, and I wish you a fruitful and very successful discussion today. Thank you very much, Tana, and thank you everybody for being here today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taiko, and good luck with your discussions. We will definitely go into a broader, detailed presentation of our white paper shortly in the second part of our debate. Thanks a lot for being with us for this morning. And now let's see. So Ms. Taiko set up a bit the framework. She provided several examples. Let's see a bit what our speakers think. So I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Tudorake and to ask him to tell us a bit about his activity in the European Parliament and to send us some preliminary remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, Tana. Many thanks for the invitation and happy to start up. But in fact, probably it's better if I actually address your first question, which was, I think, a very good one to set the scene, which is what can we do to reach the objectives of automation. The emptiest wave of automation, we've had automation before, but this one driven by AI, driven by technologies that are part of the future as we try to set it. I think the first step in what we need to do has already been done, and that's, I think, the good news, which is setting the course. And I think both Ms. Taiko and yourself, also in your concept paper, you referred to the digital decade, you referred to the policy framework which the Commission has put forward over the last 2-3 years, and not only the policy framework, but also the legislative proposals that the Commission has put on our table since already 3 years now, and a very healthy, much healthier than in the past, a very healthy financial environment, financial scheme, financial programs, which are due to support this ambition, to support the policy framework mentioned. So again, this first step of setting the objectives, setting the course, setting the targets, very important, because that actually puts a bit in a broader frame the ambition and where we need to go. And I think for both businesses and the society at large, this is an important element. So again, first step done, tick the box, great. And let's move on to the next. And that next is, from my point of view, where the proof of the pudding will come, as the British say, because that is where we will determine whether we manage to set our business environment, our economies on a path of competitiveness or not. or whether all this effort that we've done in these 2-3 years of writing up a beautiful strategy and setting up some ambitious targets remains hampered, remains handicapped by a lack of sufficient tools and a lack of concrete elements that are important for creating the environment, the ecosystem for businesses to actually uptake these new technologies, develop them, roll them, understand the new regulatory environment that we're going to adopt, use it to their advantage, learn how to comply in such a new environment, and then again progress towards reaching those objectives. So for me, this second step, which is the moment when we'll implement all of this ambition and all of these rules, is the most important one, and this is where we need to watch carefully and embark in a very something that we haven't done, I think, enough so far in previous waves of automation that I mentioned earlier, which is we need to learn to be much closer to the business sector. We need to learn to work with the business sector to make sure that, again, we are creating the right conditions in this environment, in this ecosystem, for them to thrive, for them to innovate. And this will indeed encourage uptake. If we believe that companies are naturally equipped to uptake these technologies, we are wrong. Some of them are. But I think all research so far shows that there is still a significant part of our economic sectors that is still reluctant for various reasons to actually embrace technology, to embrace these new processes, from RPAs to any other forms of automation, for various factors. And I think, again, there needs to be an effort in the way we will be implementing first of all, in the way we're going to write the rules, but also in the way we're going to implement the rules, to ensure that there is this uptake and this appetite in our businesses to actually adopt these instruments, adopt these new tools of the trade, and roll with them towards progress, towards growth, because that's what we expect from them. And we can have a longer discussion on this later on. I don't want to take too many minutes on that. But again, clearly, we have a duty as regulators to also watch, number one, the way we write the rules, so that the rules do not become a burden, but actually stimulate their growth. And second, that we are very mindful of the stimulants that we need to put in place in order for businesses to uptake technology. And clarity of rules is one of those stimulants. The second part of this second step implementation is to also look at the uptake of society, of the users, of the consumers. Because no matter if businesses and companies are opening their arms towards the new realities of technological uptake, if somewhat the consumer remains reluctant. And this is where trustworthiness is key. We need trustworthy technologies so that the consumers do not shy away or run away or fear the products or the services that are being driven by these technologies. And this is where, again, the public sector, we, the regulators, also have to be mindful of how we put in place programs that explain, that encourage, that, again, I come back also to regulation, the way we're going to write the rules for all of these digital transformations is important to not scare people away from technology and from the new reality of our digital economies and data-driven economies, but actually to give that element of trust for them to stay close to this process of transformation and embrace it themselves as well. And then there's a third step, and I'll stop as an intro, which is the part of enforcement that links to learning lessons and adapting. I think what is crucial in this digital transformation, this automation process, is the fact that it is leaping very quickly and is leaping quite dramatically from one stage of development to the next. And this is where the rules have to remain, and the regulators playing and enforcing those rules have to remain very agile. And that agility means somewhat staying always closely in touch with the businesses, with those that actually bring the reality check of the implementation of the norm, so that, again, they can introduce adaptability and agility in the way the norms are enforced, but also, when needed, to adapt the rules to reflect the reality. And again, I think with digital, this is even more important than ever. And one last point, and then I promise I stop. Throughout all of these, from phase 1 to phase 3, or whatever, how many phases or steps you want to imagine, there is one common thread, and that is skills and education. Businesses are not going to be successful in uptaking AI or any other digital technology. Consumers are not going to be happily embracing it unless we invest massively in education. We invest massively in skills. There is a huge gap in terms of digital skills. And this is where also, again, the public sector, the regulators, the governments, the policymakers have a role to play. Not alone. Again, I think businesses also have to reimagine their role in passing on some of these skills, but certainly policymakers have a role, because we need a rethink of our educational systems and of our reskilling strategies to cope with the new realities 5-10 years from now. Thank you.
Yes, many thanks for these insightful starting points, because I took note of several of the elements you mentioned, and it would be very interesting to also hear now the different angles. So the angle of the business sector, in response to the elements that you raised. But it is true indeed that we have to be careful at the implementation, and this is indeed a huge responsibility that the regulators have every time that they think about the proper legislation, to be able to not to create further administrative burden, to cut the red tape, not to create extra one, and also to incentivize the businesses to comply with the rules, and not to create other exits that will facilitate their work, but will not in the end lead to the goals that we have at the EU level. Especially since we have the year of skills coming up next year at the EU level, the point that you made on the skills and on the education part is extremely relevant, and I think it will also be linked to a question that we already have in the audience. There's someone that already asked the question, and we will get back to that later. But now let's see some reactions from the business sector, and we have Margareta with us here today. You're part of a very wonderful story that you're promoting, and you're launching it. And I remember that we had a lot of discussions about the use of the AI and of the RPA. Back when the drafting of the Romanian National Recovery Plan. So. I remember that you promoted very, very much those new technologies, and I would like to ask you a bit some of the reactions that you have for what the regulators are doing.
Thank you so much, Tana, and thank you for the context and this important question. If I can build on the comments that were already made, and I completely echo the importance of prioritizing skills and education, because they are the cornerstone and the basis for everything that relates to adoption of technologies. And when we talk about the barriers to adopting these kinds of new technologies, it's important, especially at the business level, to separate, big enterprises, large enterprises from small and medium-sized companies. Because obviously the adoption and expertise is much more, you can find it much more easily in large enterprises, but at the same time, this is much more challenging for SMEs. And in terms of priorities of SMEs during this current climate, we might argue that digital transformation is not necessarily the top priority, because they're really, really focused on keeping their businesses alive and going. So I think in order to increase the adoption, a common effort has to be driven by both the private and the public sector to explain, as you were mentioning, Tana, what is the value added of this technology? How can it really help you in driving your goals? How can we couple the capabilities of these new technologies with your business priorities, irrespective of the size of your company? But I think, again, much more attention needs to be made and needs to be closely aligned with the SMEs. And I can give a few examples of how this has been addressed in Romania. I think they're very good examples. Essentially, for SMEs, the strategies to couple uptake of new technologies, from cloud to automation to blockchain to all sorts of new technologies, with parallel initiatives of skills development. So one without the other is very hard to imagine in practice. And as part of these skills development strategies, you can do that on your own, within your pace as a business, as a business or as employees. There are all sorts of options available online, free courses to get trained, get certified. But in order to do something probably more systemic, it needs to be coupled with like universities and training providers and be part of let's say, a national program for skills development. But these things are already work in progress, and I think it's a really, really good lesson and a really good lesson learned. But if we make this right, if we think about adoption along with technology adoption and skills development strategies, I think another challenge is the digital transformation of the public sector. So I'm not 100% sure that the biggest challenge of the digital decade is the digital transformation of businesses. And I think, obviously, each cardinal point in the digital decade has its own particular challenges and its own probably particular recommendations to overcome those set challenges. And I just wanted to give some insights into from some studies developed by McKinsey. So it says that the Technology Trends Outlook 2022 from McKinsey brings light to the relative number of patents filed related to AI in 2021 compared to 2015. They have been multiplied by 30. So if we think about private sector, it means that innovation has accelerated in this field. So the private investments in AI-related companies in 2021 was about $93 billion. The organizations adopting such technologies have more than twice better financial performance and increase in adoption. So I think the private sector is more agile in this respect. But in order to create, again, that common effort, I think the digital transformation of public sector needs to go hand in hand, because businesses ultimately want to interact with digitally transformed public authorities. Whether we talk about those key life events that also have the business side to it, not only the citizen side to it, from how you open a company, from how you file for a merger, or how you pay your taxes. It has to be, again, digitally transformed and according to the priorities of the life events. It has to be 100% transformed by 2030. So that would be my key, initial preliminary, let's say, remarks. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for the elements that you put forward, because indeed we cannot aim to digitalize on the one hand, but not provide digitalized services on the other hand, in order to stimulate the business sector. So truly aligned with what you're saying. And I see here that actually there are our participants in the debate commenting already on the elements that you exposed, both Dragos and yourself. Let's take then one question from the audience that was raised, and then perhaps, because I think it's very well related to what you already mentioned. So Andrei is telling us that a significant part of Europe is affected by different levels of digital illiteracy. How can we introduce such new technologies, so the AI, the RPA, to them? And let's see, Dragos, if you have some thoughts about it.
Well, I wish I had a magic wand. I don't, and also I wish that we at European level could do more, but unfortunately, for the moment, we can't. We can adopt all sorts of soft measures, but as you know, education is not a policy, a communitarized policy, so responsibility still is national. I don't want to shift the blame on governments rather than Brussels, but I do think that if we had the education, and this was also evident with health during the pandemics, if we had education as a policy under the treaty where the EU would have competencies, not only to regulate, but to come with harder measures of coordinating and again, setting this sort of course, I think it would help. But anyway, so we have to do with what we have. So I still think that those soft measures that I mentioned are important. And if we look at some of the messages behind these strategic documents that I mentioned earlier, the digital decade and all that, I think it's clear that the Commission is also saying, listen, pay the right attention, skills are important, education is important. How to do that? Number one, by looking at early education, because even if we have these younger generations that are digital natives, that's not enough. I think we need to invest in them structurally in the new education systems to make sure that these generations, when they will reach the labor markets, they will have the right set of skills and competencies and openness towards what these technologies mean. But the question is, what do we do with the current generations, the generations that are already now in the labor market? How do you open them up to AI? How do you open them up to RPAs and all those processes? And this is where, again, reskilling is important and investing in competencies is important. And here I agree with Margareta and what she was saying earlier. I also am more, in fact, concerned with the ability of the public sector to adapt than to the ability of the business environment. Because even if, and I was mentioning earlier what my concerns were, and how I still think that there are business segments that are more prone to a slower adoption than others, I still think that they will have at least the market forces that will push them towards these trends, whether they like it or not. And that will include investing in reskilling their labor force to fit with whatever investments they will make in automation. But again, the question is, what do you do with the public sector and what do you do with the public at large? And when it comes to the public sector, first of all, indeed, investing in automating the public sector itself, creating the tools, investing in the tools to move as much of the public services into digital as possible. And then, of course, upskilling the civil servant who right now also mentally is blocked in a reality that doesn't fit what we are living through today. And when it comes to the public at large, other than investing in education, what I was saying earlier, the need to be, and this is again where I think the governments, the public sector has a responsibility, the need to be massive investments in popularizing what these new technologies represent, how they are part of our everyday lives, because the public at large needs to start getting at least the bare minimum of skill and awareness so that they can interact with the businesses that are moving faster, but also with the public sector that will inevitably, maybe slower, much slower than we would like to, but still it will inevitably move online. And I always use this example in Ukraine. Ukraine, a country at war, with almost its entire infrastructure destroyed, is managing to provide services to its citizens. Why? Because they were digitalized. They were digitalized before the start of the war, which means that the Ukrainian citizen, whether they are in a town with no electricity, no water, no signal, or anything else, or whether they are abroad, refugees, they can access from their mobile phone. They can access almost all of the key services that the state provides to a citizen, from renewing its driving license to paying taxes and anything else. That is the benefit of automation. That is the benefit of digital, and also what it means for the citizens and giving the citizens access to the services that the state provides. So again, I think that there's a transformation that needs to happen both in terms of mentalities as well as the way the state understands its role.
Yes, absolutely true. And I concur with the example that you provided. I was also impressed by the different events in which we attended as speakers. And I was extremely impressed by the technology that they use in order to, in full escalating conflict, to be able to connect people from all over the world. And as you mentioned, also on the other hand, to ensure that citizens still have access to their basic rights in a way to have their services that they request at any time. Let's see, Margareta, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking maybe it might make sense to couple this question with the next question because it is along the same line. So, Tana, let me know if you want me to read it or if you want to.
No, exactly, because I wanted, but well, I was anticipating a bit. I wanted actually to ask you also to provide some examples, but after you have this question. So indeed, maybe I will already read the second question. Is very much linked because in a way Christian is telling us that he understands the fact that we explained the added value of the new technology, but he would like to see, and in order to convince consumers and SMEs to use the new technologies, we should focus on how exactly the innovative technologies solve real problems. And perhaps here maybe we could have some concrete examples of the value added of the tech innovation in the daily activity.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a really great point. And first of all, I think these kinds of questions, if you're a business user thinking about what kind of technology you want to adopt in order to solve, let's say, a challenge that you have at your day-to-day job, you have some processes that you would like to improve. Well, in order to think about a solution, you really need to have, again, a set of digital competences that allow you to make this kind of judgment. And I think it really, it depends in terms of the types of consumers or citizens, what level of digital competences they need to develop in order to make use of digital transformation for their purposes. So I think it's important that every citizen develops a set of basic digital skills so that they can make use of digital public services, can use all sorts of platforms and applications and solutions at their workplace. But at the same time, obviously, we also need to invest in developing advanced digital competences so you can make more complex assessments of this kinds of improvements that you would either do yourself as someone who is maybe a developer or a solution architect or someone that wants to become a more advanced user of technology within the workplace. And as private sector, I think what you can do is to partner with as many organizations as you obviously see fit and as you have the capacity to do so, whether they're workforce organizations, whether they are universities, in order to democratize the curricula, so make accessible learning of these kinds of new technologies, do the hackathons, because in this particular context, you again challenge exactly these kinds of solutions versus traditional technologies that might be let's say might be good for the time being, but you can replace them with new sorts of innovations, right? So that would also be I think one of the recommendations that I would make. In let's say concrete example, we have partnered with Chartered Accountants Ireland, for example. So in this particular space where we talk about accounting and finance, the Chartered Accountant Ireland Institute realized that we need to educate our accountants right now also in the field of digital technology. So why not do it right now when we get them the certifications, make them also available, of course, in digital transformation. And obviously there were some assessments in place that coupled the important trends with the profession of becoming an accountant. So I think that was a very, very good example. And I'm sure there are others. The partnership, I think, is really, really key. The same, I think, applies to, maybe innovating in the public sector, because there's a mechanism in place that I think it's still not widely known within the public sector in Europe. This kind of mentality to find the best in class solution for the problem you have is the public procurement mechanism of innovative solutions. And I think, especially for this kind of new technologies, we could also think along these lines. First, identify what is the actual problem that we have right now within a said public authority, and let's think about a more flexible approach to finding the right set of technologies to tackle that.
Interesting. I was still, listening and processing what the examples that you mentioned, because indeed it's a concrete example that applies in, in real life, lifelong learning, basically process. I see actually now very interesting. We have a hand raised by one of our colleagues, Valeria Dima. Valeria is a new expert that joined our team, Europuls. She is working in the IT sector here in Brussels. And she is also very passionate of cybersecurity. So let's see, Valeria, if you have a question for our speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tana. Yeah, I do have a question, and actually my question is not at this point related to cybersecurity, but I was thinking, listening to you, about obstacles that organization could face in their automating processes. And I think that one very important obstacle could be people, employees. And my question would be if there are still employees that consider that automation could be a threat for their jobs, and if they still ignore the benefits of the automation and digitalization, and they prefer to stick with their previous processes, let's say manual processes or semi-manual processes. Do you face this issue in your current activity?
Let's perhaps ask Dragos, since he has an extensive experience also in the government, to tell us whether he also confronted with these types of situations, and then we can switch to Margareta. Dragos, please.
Yes, thank you.
Well, if you ask me about governments and public administration, there the tendency to resist to change is somewhat more structural. It's not only related to automation processes or new technologies. There, again, resistance to change is a big umbrella, is something that needs to be factored in. And I wouldn't think that automation is something that would be resisted more than any other new ideas, new processes, new legislation, new systems that would be introduced. And there, again, raising awareness and investing in education and explaining, I think that's something that needs to be done. I think the bigger question, the more interesting, but there Margareta might have more to say than I do, because I don't have an organization behind me, is what happens in the public sector, in the labor market at large. How much resistance is there in the labor force to new technologies in general? And I think this is where, if we look at past industrial revolutions, every new big technological leap forward has brought about resistance in the labor market, because this is something new, and for many, something that would replace their old ways. Either replace jobs, that's the biggest fear. Oh my God, automation is coming. What are we going to do? I used to be the one, I don't know, sifting through documents and giving my advice to my superiors, or I was the one doing this sort of repetitive job. Automation will come, it will wipe me away. Or a bit more sophisticated, maybe I don't think that my job will disappear, but it's going to entail a transformation of how I do that job, and therefore I need to invest or I will lose my job. So again, these fears, these are not new. So we have to understand that this is not something that labor markets and humankind hasn't experienced before. And I think that this time around, unlike in previous cases of industrial revolutions, we have better tools, including these digital tools, to actually explain and help the labor force adapt quicker. It was much more difficult in the past than it is right now. This is what we have to understand. So it might seem like a bigger mountain somehow, because there are also a lot of urban legends about automation and about AI, and oh my God, all of these things that are coming to us and we don't understand them and what they mean. But I do think that the tools right now are also more agile, more adapt to actually sell this transformation to those that need to understand it and embrace it. So I'm actually optimistic in the way this sort of introduction of new processes to the labor markets are done, provided that they are accompanied by all of these elements, processes, programs that also Margareta was mentioning before.
Let's see, Margareta, you also have some thoughts, and maybe because I saw another question here, which is also a bit related, also about this mental mechanisms, that are reluctant to change. But let's first see your reaction, and then we'll take more questions because they're flowing actually. So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the comments from Mr. Tudorache on the differences between the impact of the adopting of automated solutions in the past versus in the future, I think it's a really important consideration to keep in mind, because there are major differences. And as people who relate to, again, a certain let's say linked to the past, we might tend to associate these trends, but they are different. And when we think about the innovations in automation that were particularly driven like centuries ago, they were mainly aimed at, I think, obviously productivity, but also thinking about those, the work that kind of raised some how can you best portray that, made labor difficult, made labor a very hard job to do, because it posed threats to safety, or it was just too intense, right? So people thought about driving innovation in this sense of how can we remove, these threats to personal safety when one is at work. That was the main trend. Right now, when we think about automation in the digital space, we don't have this kind of objective in mind, but the objective that comes to mind right now is how do we eliminate error? How do we help workers? How do we help office workers become more productive, and actually give them an aid to assist them throughout their tasks? And some of these tasks, because we have overburdened the digital space, have become repetitive and predictable and mundane. And this is something that didn't happen in the past. In the past, we were thinking about our own safety. We were thinking about how to make the factories more efficient. Right now, we think about how do I process the immense amount of data and the immense amount of inquiries that I receive, let's say, as an accountant, when my job is not necessarily to do that. I have been trained to do a different kind of work, and I would prefer, and this is pretty much the case in general, to focus on that. So it's a decluttering of the digital, let's say, processes that happens when you adopt these kinds of new solutions, new kinds of automation. And when the business users, when the process owners see the impact that this creates within their own job, they are happy and they become champions, because otherwise this adoption could not have happened, right? And technologies such as automation would just not be adopted. So making automation technologies of different kinds real to your employees, explaining them what they mean without creating this link to what has happened in the past, and contextualize in what happens right now in the enterprise of the present and of the future, is a very important first step that each organization needs to do when they think about becoming digitally transformed, irrespective of the kind of technology, and making this let's say, conversation between process owners and business owners and their managers available. Ask questions, explain what is your roadmap, what do you want to achieve in 2 years in terms of digital transformation, how can I help, what is my role? And as part of this conversation, you eliminate the fear and you create a dialogue between the business and the employees that ultimately become and should become the drivers of this trend.
Thank you very much. Actually, your answer is also replying to another question that was raised in the chat by George Tuță, who is a member of the parliament in Romania, and he's a member in the Committee of Industry and Services. And I know that he already had a bit of a sneak peek at our white paper, because he organized not that long time ago a debate in a Romanian parliament on automatization and the future of work. So we managed to have a preview of our white paper there as well. So we're very glad and surprised, positively surprised that he also joined our debate. Let's see, because I think we still have one more time for one more question, and perhaps this would be linked to something that I anticipated to ask you, as some sort of a conclusion to this first debate. So we have Andrei asking us here and stating that big corporations proved that, well, sometimes I have to say, they can use AI in a bad way, in the sense that he's raising issues such as privacy problems, social media issues, etc. And he's asking whether the European Union has enough mechanisms currently to prevent this, or what does it need to improve. And what I would like to link it with is, because I wanted to ask you for this final part of our debate, what are some concrete steps in which the business representatives could work together with the decision makers to approach the digital decade target? So perhaps we could mix these two questions and see whether we could have some final remarks from your side. So Dragos, please.
Okay, I will take them separately because they are linked, but still each of them deserves a separate answer. First one, bad AI. Well, number one, I sometimes like to say that there is no bad AI, or that technology in general is neutral, and therefore we should not be putting labels on technology itself. We should be putting labels on the way technology is being used. And in fact, also, if we look at the approach that the EU legislation is taking, we are not regulating the technology itself. When it comes to AI, for example, we're not saying this technology is bad, we're saying this use of technology is bad and therefore has to be prohibited, for example, and you have those proposals from the Commission on use cases of AI that simply, according to our values in the European Union, we do not want, for example, social scoring, or use of biometric technology, AI-driven biometric technology in public spaces, and so on and so forth. Or certain uses of AI are bringing about such a high risk to our interests as humans, as consumers, and therefore they need to be regulated stricter. They need to pass certain transparency, explainability requirements in order to be put on the market. So this is the approach that we take And the question, what and how do we do something about it? I would say, well, yes, here in the European Union, we are taking this, I would dare say, more seriously than in other corners of the world, because we are first at the global level coming up with concrete rules on that. Concrete rules on responsibility for online content. And this is the famous DSA, Digital Services Act, which again, for the first time, and hopefully we're going to be global trendsetters on that, we are saying what actually it means to say what is illegal offline has to be also illegal online. So what does that mean, particularly when it comes to platforms, online platforms, and social media is a very important element in that. What companies need to do in order to address systemic risks in the way their algorithms are functioning, so on and so forth. So again, this element of responsibility of content is something that we are taking very seriously. We now have legislation on it, and we will have to see the effects of that pretty soon. All the rest of the digital legislation that we have on the table, that we're still working on, like the AI Act, on which I'm the rapporteur, they're all built around the idea of human-centric technology. And this human centricity means exactly that. Looking at the impact that technology may have, again, it's not mandatory to have, and in fact, the vast majority of technology does not have that impact and therefore needs to be allowed and stimulated to grow and contribute to our economic development. But we recognize that certain uses of technology, and we see that already in our lives, may have and does have an impact on, again, our rights, on our liberties, and also on the social fabric of our societies and democracies. And because it has that impact, it needs to be following certain rules. And this is what we're doing. This is part of the debate that we have right now around the AI Act, around the AI Liability Directive, and so on and so forth. So again, the whole range of legislation that we have right now on the table, and that is going to be in 1 year, 1.5 years' time, is going to come into effect, is going to address these points. So this to the first question. To the second question, I think the key, at least a very concrete point of intersection between the regulator and the business, from my point of view, is the sandbox. Sandbox is a concept that I believe in a lot. I'm actually promoting it and putting it at the center of the legislative efforts that we're making right now, particularly in the AI Act. Why? Because I think it's the place where the businesses can interact with the regulator in order to be allowed to make mistakes, in order to understand what they need to do in order to develop technology that stays compliant with a new set of norms, and then put on the market applications of technology that are fitting with the new regulatory framework that we are putting in place. So for me, sandboxes are an integral element of how we will be rolling out, how we'll be implementing these new legislation that we are putting in place, something that I was referring to at the beginning, the second crucial step of implementing. I'm going to promote throughout the negotiations for the AI Act this sort of model of governance, and this is a second crucial element, a governance for implementing and enforcing laws where the regulator and the businesses stay one next to each other in order to make sure that they can constantly be in touch with the reality of implementation, with the challenges that sometimes implementation brings about, and that the regulator needs to know in order to make the right decisions. So for me, with this sort of right governance in place, and with these concrete sandbox applications and concepts where regulators and businesses can work together, I think we can ensure this sort of compatibility in the implementation of this strategy and of these new pieces of legislation.
Thank you very much, Dragoș, for the openness, and good luck with the negotiations of the AI Act. Hopefully we will, we're looking forward to hear your news on this. Let's see, Margareta, any final thoughts?
Maybe just as a short recap, we're talking about ways in which the private sector and the public sector can better collaborate to achieve the digital decade targets, right? So I think if we, there was also this other question that, again, I think I will consider separately for the same reasons as before. I think increasing transparency and facilitating a more dialogue will always help, in the sense that it is not easy to identify exactly what kind of actions need to be taken at the moment in time, let's say right now, that will have an impact in 3 years from now when we talk about digital transformation. So I think, especially at the member states level, there should be a continuous process of dialogue, facilitating dialogue, especially on the digital decade, when measuring the KPIs and the progress that will be achieved yearly. And I think it is also a requirement to report this level of progress. So I think every year or so, it could be welcome to have a conversation between the public and the private sector, and also nonprofits and other important actors to this dialogue, and say, well, where have we made progress? Well, it is in this particular area. Where do we face challenges? And then adapt. So create a framework that is more flexible and can be more easily adapted without setting in stone actions and priorities now that will have an impact in 4 or 5 years from now on. I think it's very hard to predict. And I think creating this dialogue and this community between private and public sector organizations to strive for the same objectives will be very welcomed, and I think very helpful in driving this effort collectively. That would be my recommendation. And in regards to the policies that are now being discussed and will be enacted in the future, I think it's kind of the same principle. It's again about being transparent. And the companies nowadays, especially companies that are large enterprises, have AI ethics boards and all sorts of mechanisms that, again, want to reinforce what the company is doing in terms of these particular topics. And maybe not so evident at the very first, but I think another important mechanism will be how companies report on their environmental, social, and governance objectives, because these sorts of policies and this sort of compliance that will need to happen will be ultimately also reported on and monitored through the ESG reports that, again, large companies are publishing, and the European Union is also making a lot of progress in aligning these sorts of non-financial reporting mechanisms. So those will be my 2 cents, and those reports and that kind of information will be public.
Many thanks for these insights. I can't believe that we already are at the end of our panel, because it really went very fast and we still have a lot of questions. So we'll definitely try to address them after the event as well. Now, for the second part, so we listened to, the framework that we set together with Dragos and Margareta, and we have now, the privilege, and I will give the floor to Francesca for this, to present a bit, the white paper that we developed, as part of the second panel. But we will not do that before, first of all, me thanking you for your availability and for the fact that you took out this Monday morning, which is busy for all of us, starting the week to attend this debate. And to thank you very much for your input. We will come back to you with the follow-up questions as well, and we will send definitely to you the white paper for sure. And I will also take advantage to thank the colleagues that and our fellows that drafted this white paper. So Dalia Ali, Kirina Buzu, Davor Lyubenkov, and Francesca Crista, who will be our moderator and the presenter of the white paper for the second panel of this debate. So Francesca, any thoughts about our debate so far? Any feedback? Are there elements that we already tackled in the white paper, or we still have work to do after this discussion?
First of all, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dragoș Tudorache. Thank you very much, Ms. Margareta Mucibabiș-Chesaru, for accompanying us for the event and for guiding us through all our research. We are very thankful to be here. It's a premiere for us to launch the white paper. We tackled some points of the debate, meaning that we tried to encompass a context in which representative of business, representative of the educational system, representatives of the policy making, decision makers could join their forces together into obtaining a better sketch of the future policy that we need. We tackle future of work, we tackle economic growth, we tackle education, we tackle skills, and furthermore, we want to develop upon all the subjects that we mentioned. I realized that maybe I went a little bit too fast. My name is Francesca, and I'm the head of policy and programs for Europuls. And together with my three colleagues, Irina Buzu, Daria Alic, and Davor, we have encompassed our thoughts regarding the digital decade and the path to the digital decade into the paper, writing recommendations, guiding us through our research to context, to practices that have been applied to multiple countries, and into guiding the governments and future institutions that could in place policies that can tackle the targets of the digital decade in place. So without any further adjustment, I would like to present the paper. It would be a premiere, and it will be very shortly put on the website after we finish with the event. As I mentioned, it was drafted in the last month because we wanted to encompass as many features as possible. And without further ado, I will share screen. Okay, let's see. Okay, great. So as we mentioned, it was work for the past months. It was conducted by the There is consensus on the critical role of digital technology and the need to foster green growth. And basically the digital decade communication and the path to the digital decade decision proposals can articulate the EU's visions and commitments for the following years. And this is what we have generated through our research. Our research contains basically two chapters. The Europe's plan for the digital transitions, where we basically try to encounter how business and the public sector can benefit from the digital transformation and how we can support the economic development as a critical focus on this aspect. As you know, according to DESI, the EU member states allocated almost 37% of their programs and digital investment towards the digitalization of business, and opted to invest approximately 17% of the program funds on human capital. And by this, we wanted to stage just the harmonized digital transition, because this is why we are opting for a harmonized transition towards digitalizations. And this is what the digital decade is aiming for. The 4 cardinal points that we are having right here: the skills, the public services, infrastructure, and business as part of the transition. Of course, for the public services specifically, as Mr. Tudorake has said, the EU's ambition is to make sure that by 2030, all the key public services are available online. All citizens have access to their e-medical records, and 80% of the citizens are able to use digital ID solutions. These are the ambitious target of the digital decade of the European Union, hoping that in 5 days, in 7 weeks from now, 7 years from now, will be accomplished. So the second part of our paper follows the role of automation in Europe's digital decade, and we are looking how specifically on policy making the European Union can apply this. We are building on the digital targets, on modernizing the digital and digitalizing public services, fostering innovation and digital transformation of businesses, equipping the population with basic and advanced digital skills. And by this, we want to ensure a path through achieving the ambitious set of the digital decade. We should highlight the understanding of citizens for the design of better policies and services. We must find new resilient solutions to policy challenges to implement everyday government functions and provide responsive services more efficiently and effectively. We have to engage with citizens, as Mr. Tudorake has mentioned before. It's very important for us to create a context in the representative of the business, of the education, of the civil society, and the decision makers can gather up and can join their forces into policy making. Well, you know that central governments organizations are already applied basically in this type of policies are already applied in central governments, social benefits calculation, tax calculation, anti-fraud checks, licensing applications processing, and for permit of application, incident reporting, case management, and contract administration and local governments. This is how we use automation so far, and this is why we need to apply it broadly. We have made a set of recommendations for every part of the paper. I would like to focus on the governments that should consider investing in creating roles and career paths to attract highly skilled professionals in the areas of digital technologies to fulfill ambitions of the digital decade, equipping the public sector workforce with the digital skills required, and prioritizing and incentivizing training to address the skills gap. When we talk about the skills gap, we are usually referring to the actual generations or to the new generations that are basically in training at schools, at official institutions, but the discussion with the public servants is still new, and we need to address it because we also need to train the people who are working within the system and who will work within the system to have the the digital skills needed, because the digital skills needed are not longer needed only to perform a career within tech or within informatization or digitization, because we need the digitalization skills in almost every field. And some fields have emerged. For example, we have the digital diplomacy that was accentuated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the diplomatic elite needed to adapt. Some professions will be transformed because, as Mrs. Margareta mentioned, people are very afraid of change, are afraid to changing their working places, of their opportunities for the future. But we should also state that embracing automation and embracing other soft mechanisms would help us concentrate better on meaningful work and creation work, not on redundant tasks or ongoing ones. Of course, the people skills will be very much needed, and of course, there is something that is not always mentioned. We will need people who supervise the soft. So, but while automation would make the redundant practices, the logistic one, the administrative one, we need human force to supervise it, to improve it by letting time also to human resources to further develop on the aspect of creation and the aspect of the content, because content nowadays is everything: creating content, creating experience, and understanding how people can evolve. And we can do this by introducing automatization and digital skills needed for us to perform our work. Okay. I will now leave the floor to Davor. He is one of the researchers that helped our organization, that helped Europuls while drafting this research paper. He was the one engaged with how automation can fructify the business development sector. And he would develop his part moreover in the video message that he has prepared for us. So let's hear his message.
Dear esteemed Europuls and UiPath colleagues, keynote speakers, panelists, it is a great pleasure to be invited to the Automation for Sustainable and Durable Growth online event carefully coordinated by the Center of European Expertise. Unfortunately, I'm unable to join you all in real time due to my in-residence research involvement at Harvard Business School in the United States. But instead, I thoughtfully recorded the following video message. Hopefully, it will pose no technical challenge, and for any follow-up questions or clarifications, you are more than welcome to contact me directly at your leisure. Working on the white paper about powering sustainable growth through automation and digital transformation, I have focused on how enterprises and business entities alike can utilize RPA or robotic process automation as a quid pro quo driving force. This means balancing its resources and value network interactions such as corporate profit, sustainability, corporate social responsibility, potential environmental issues, scalability mechanisms, departmental architecture, and a vast number of other indicator groups. This comprehensive analytical task uncovered some insights through the usage of practical use cases and heuristics methods. One key takeaway, which I would like to emphasize for anyone analyzing our work beyond pure quantifiable metrics, would be an importance of a holistic approach whenever sustainability in general is being juxtaposed to any form of emerging technology, let alone automation or artificial intelligence. This kind of strategic overview that encompasses macroeconomic recommendations, private-public policy harmonization, and ethical conundrums offers powerful tools to experts by creating a level playing field for everyone willing to innovate in the field of automation. Some of the main findings of business automation interplay include the following. Half of the RPA market share is split between banking, financial, and insurance services, IT, and telecom industry. Business automation mechanisms are a trade-off between various scalability factors, and not all are quantified in quarterly or annual reports. RPA processes, and more specifically, data-intensive RPA architecture, are intimately tied with big data algorithms, meaning that they subsequently inherit all energy consumption-related drawbacks in terms of green sustainability and environmental issues. Lastly, use cases are the best way to showcase the potential and success of RPA implementation, especially with processes that have been lagging to innovate and modernize, such as finance operations, human resource, or invoice systems. Moreover, further smart investment in AI and smart automation systems is directly connected to sustainable growth strategies, as it allows for EU innovation grants, betterment of brand image, and organically connecting to users and customers by shifting focus on smart, automatized, and human-centric technologies. As a brief overview of policy recommendations on this topic, I would like to mention the efforts to harmonize private sector sustainable growth reporting and defining key indicators for tracking digital SDGs or sustainable development goals. Quantifying and control over gas emissions, water usage, and power consumption relating to data centers and the emergence of something called large stochastic language models in machine learning. Having said that, we should encourage and enforce through the industry-based code of conduct good practices of heuristic frameworks, especially those favoring strategic management aspects of external forces, macro-environmental factors, and cyber law barriers. With this, I would like to conclude my white paper overview in the segment related to automation and digital transformation of businesses. I do hope everyone tuning in today will get a good sense of our entire work and use it as a guiding principle in the respective fields. Overall, let this joint effort be a motivation for a continuous collaboration towards sustainable and durable growth in the arena of automation. Foundations such as this one could and should branch into potential non-binding policy resolutions, industry standards, strategies for boosting innovation capacities, and betterment of society at large. Enjoy the rest of the event filled with new insights and have a fruitful panel discussions. Best regards.
We thank very much Davor for his involvement and his enthusiasm, because as he mentioned, we are looking forward to creating a framework in which all the stakeholders could benefit and could join forces into achieving the targets of the digital decade. Remember that we have four cardinal points that refer to skills, refer to business, refer to the public sector, and refers to security as well. We also would like to thank Irina, whose message is the next one. Irina tackled the education and the skills gap of our generation, because it's very important we have a skills mismatch in our actual generation of young people and young professionals, because the skills do not match the working places that the young people want to perform. This is the reason why they lack very much training, they lack guidance, and unfortunately the digital basic skills that should be prepared during the national educational institutional offer are lacking, and the discrepancy between rural and urban areas are deepening, and were deepened even more after transitioning to the European skills, European year of skills. We just want to make sure that we are transitioning to the European year of skills, and we just want to that the young generation can further benefit from these targets, because they are, as I said, the targets, the group target, we are addressing to them, the skills they should develop. We are talking about people in schools, in universities, we are talking about civil servants, and we are talking, of course, about the representative of civil society and the business area as well. So please let us listen to Irina's message regarding the educational systems and the skills gap, and how can we solve it through recommendations. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Irina, and I'm honored to have been able to co-author the white paper on automation for sustainable and durable growth, alongside my fellow colleagues from Europuls, Center for European Expertise, and with the incredible support offered by UiPath. Achieving the ambitious set under Europe's digital decade will require close collaboration and significant collective efforts to be successful. Building on the digital targets, my part of the research focused on the role of automation in the context of modernizing and digitalizing public services. Digital technologies enable capabilities that can provide strength and agility in recovering and responding effectively to disruptions. Examples of enabling technologies include AI, predictive analytics, robotics and automation, IoT, geospatial data, blockchain, open government data. At the same time, the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated that governments need to adapt rapidly to evolving situations while at the same time creating new opportunities. Digital technologies, therefore, such as automation, are well suited to helping, especially the public administration, to respond effectively to those changes, boost productivity, and deliver citizen and data-driven solutions. According to one of the digital targets set for the public sector by 2030, 100% of key public services should be available online for citizens and businesses, which basically means that there is a need for public administrations to provide interoperable, personalized, and user-friendly digital public services. Furthermore, by 2030, 100% of European citizens should have access to electronic medical records, and at least 80% of European citizens should use digital IDs. The public sector cannot afford to lose the digital transformation momentum in the current climate. To ensure a path towards achieving the ambitious goals set by the digital decade across the EU for 2030, government should focus on the following key enablers of sustainable digital government. These are understanding citizens better for a better design of policies and services. Government should find new resilient solutions to policy challenges. They should implement everyday government functions and provide responsive services much more effectively and efficiently. And they should engage citizens, businesses, and other external stakeholders in many ways to develop new innovative policies, sustainable services, and delivery models. There are several opportunities to leverage automation in the public sector. To the same, a recent study from the PricewaterhouseCoopers on citizens at the center building public digital service in the CEE revealed six technologies that are most relevant for developing citizen-centric services, and these are AI, cloud computing, citizen relationship management, blockchain, 5G, and RPA, or robotic process automation. Mainly, public administrations can use RPA to rapidly automate time-consuming manual processes and routine clerical work, such as data entry into various applications and systems, to allow the staff to dedicate their time to tasks of greater relevance. RPA can also reduce human errors and decrease operational costs. Moreover, using automation can improve the quality of the services delivered, as public services are delivered faster and error-free. Currently, RPA is already being applied in central government for social benefit calculations, tax calculations, anti-fraud checks, licensing application processing, for permit applications, incident reporting, case management, and contract administration. Furthermore, there are numerous applications of automation in the healthcare industry, ranging from digitalizing various documents, managing the impact of COVID-19, handling and rescheduling canceled appointments, and transferring patient records. In education, most use cases for automation include managing admissions and enrollments, student timetabling and estimates of records, student finance management, and course assessment data handling. Successful examples of deploying RPA in the public sector across European member states also include the adoption of emerging technologies in the public procurement. When we think about the recommendations on implementing automation technologies in the public sector, according to recent reports, all EU member states have foreseen investments aimed at boosting the digitalization of public services as part of their national recovery and resilience plans to the sum of approximately 28 billion euro. To maximize impact, governments should always try to align automation opportunities with their mission. Digital technologies such as automation can open more channels for interaction and collaboration between the public and the government, but these changes in turn should result in more accountable, transparent, trustworthy, and efficient public administrations. And because public servants play a critical role in fostering the diffusion of the new technologies in government, they should benefit significantly from the latest job opportunities created. At the same time, increasing human capacity to ensure sustainable digital governance is a crucial element for making the digital transition a reality within the public sector. Therefore, government should invest in creating roles and career paths to attract highly skilled professionals in the areas of digital technologies to fulfill the ambitions of the digital decade, They should equip the public sector workforce with the digital skills required for the implementation of the digital targets, and they should prioritize and incentivize training to address the skill gaps. Last but not least, public administrations are often challenged by organizational and bureaucratic obstacles, which decrease the usage of new technologies in the public sector. A successful digital transformation should also prioritize and nourish a culture of innovation within the public administration. Thank you so much.
We thank very much Irina for her involvement in the research on the white paper. We are moving now to Dalia Alic, whose expertise on governance and economic policy was a very great input for our white paper. She developed about equipping the governments with the necessary policies that can harmonize the transition through the digitalization in order to achieve the digital decade targets. She will develop further on within her message, and we should discuss about the basically modernizing and digitalizing the public services, and about also to start discussing about the digital governance and how to actively input it and how to perform public policies so as the citizens can benefit and so as the citizens can engage with the decision makers, and to take directly feedback from the system and to give feedback and so as to improve the quality of life of the citizens. Thank you very much. We should now listen to Dalia.
Dear distinguished speakers, colleagues, and guests, I'm delighted to speak to you today via video message. Unfortunately, due to my travels, I have no pleasure in being with you in person. However, I have no doubts that our Europuls team has organized an incredible event that will encourage many fruitful discussions and important actions. As one of the authors of the white paper titled Automation for Sustainable and Durable Growth, I am thrilled to be a part of a very much needed conversation on automation, which could contribute to a more resilient and sustainable economy. The current global recovery calls for green, digital, and resilient systems in the private and public sectors. The white paper on automation for sustainable and durable growth is only a piece of the greater map of how automation can create a more resilient, safer, and greener world. The purpose of our research was to explore opportunities of how automation can be leveraged to help advance the ambitions of the EU's digital decade while paving a new path towards a more resilient and sustainable economy. Automation lies on the front line of the next generation innovation. It is a megatrend that reinvented itself in the context of the digital economy. At the highest level, automation is a term used to describe technology applications for human intervention and inputs and processes, and tasks are minimized. Here are the facts. According to the PwC Global Artificial Intelligence Study, the economic impact of AI alone could contribute with approximately additional $13 trillion by 2030, resulting in a global GDP increase of about 1.2% annually. McKinsey Global Institute concluded that such an impact is possible due to the increased products and services innovation, as well as the decrease of labor by automation. The European Union's plans to harness the opportunities brought by the digital transformation are commonly referred as Europe's digital transition, as seen in the Digital Decade communication and the subsequent Path to the Digital Decade decisions proposal. At the same time, the objectives of the European Recovery Strategy calls for a close alignment with the European Green Deal and the UN SDGs, encouraging the development and use of digital technologies to help improve the management of health crises, increase the resilience of governments, and tackle global challenges such as climate change and inequality. Now, more than ever, it is essential to observe all technology, also for the lenses of safeguarding human rights during conflict and post-conflict recovery, as well as building back better. On top of that, a harmonized digital transition should be widely encouraged to avoid digital gaps and digital inequality. Entering the digital decade, the importance of cybersecurity is skyrocketing. If we are going fully digital, we should ensure that automation is protected from unwanted cyber attacks or any misuse. As policymakers, decision makers, experts, professionals, students, or individuals, we carried responsibility to welcome innovation, but never at the cost of human rights and human security violation. If applied with a human-centric approach, automation for sustainable and durable growth could answer multiple challenges humanity faces, both in the private and public spaces. Now, I warmly invite you to contribute to this important discussion of how can we apply automation as a sustainable and durable growth resource. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you another time.
Well, how can we apply automation as a source of durable and sustainable growth? This is the question of our webinar, and Dalia emphasized well the importance of the security while using automation. And the next speaker that I'm very proud to present is my colleague, Valeria Dima, who is an affiliated expert on cybersecurity for Europuls, and she will further emphasize the importance of security within the automation and digitalization process within the digital decade. Thank you very much, Valeria, for being here with us. And we are eager to listen to your points referring to the security of the harmonizing process of digitalization. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Francesca. So, yes, my name is Valeria, and I'm an affiliated expert for Europuls. As Tana mentioned earlier, I'm currently working in digital business solutions for European Commission, and I have previously worked in cybersecurity and incident response for the Council of the European Union. So I do have a passion for cybersecurity. Before starting speaking about cybersecurity in the context of Europe's digital decade, I would like to thank to my colleagues for organizing this amazing event and for their work and efforts for the releasing of this white paper, and that has been long awaited. And we all know that business process automation brings countless benefits for us, for the organizations, and we are really happy that we can rely on such an important partner as UiPath. Thank you very much. Now, moving to cybersecurity, I would say that cybersecurity is one of the top priorities and the basis of a digital and connected Europe. An increased number of cyber attacks during the last years have shown us the importance and how important it is to protect our assets. And the most important question become actually not if it's going to happen a big cyber attack, but when this is going to happen. So as Europe Digital Decade propose strong action in this field is required to secure the future of the European Union economy and society. So I would say that a strong cybersecurity strategy should aim to integrate cybersecurity across all elements of the supply chain and further consolidate EU activities and resources within the cybersecurity communities. So in this context, the most important step that we must consider are actually the following points: secure and performance sustainable digital infrastructure, excellent and secure connectivity for everybody and everywhere across Europe, improving our digital skills. We already touched this point earlier in our presentations, So improving our digital skills should build a society that can rely on digital products and online servers. Identifying on-time fraud attempts, protect ourselves against cyber attacks, phishing, scams, and prepare our society and our children to understand the risk that they are exposed to in their daily online activity. Regulatory standards on matters such as data protection, privacy, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, cyberspace, and confidence. And another important point would be to be able to tackle disinformation, illegal online content, ensure that internet governance and support the development of digital finance and online administration. And also a very important thing is to detect as early as possible the first signs of a cyber attack and take proactive action to improve our reaction and to respond to risk at national levels. The implementation of the cybersecurity strategy will allow the EU to strengthen its leadership in terms of international standards in cyberspace, strengthen cooperation with partners around the world, and be prepared for anything. I think that we should hope for the best always, but we should plan for the worst every day in our activity. And that's what I want to outline related to cybersecurity. And we should always aim to stay cyber safe in our daily activity. That would be from my side. Thank you, Francesca.
Thank you very much, Valeria. Indeed, we should we should expect for the best and prepare for the worst, as you mentioned about. But given the fact that we only have 7 years until we have to achieve the targets of the digital decade, we are planning on a very stringent timeline in order to apply the digitalization process. Of course, by applying it without further public policies that can enhance the result and can establish a framework can be very risky due to the security measures and to the sustainability of the national systems as well. So we are on the last part on the conclusions, and we maybe will take 1 or 2 questions if this is the case, but I will want to further develop on my part on the white paper, which is the future of work, that a little bit tackles the problem of the digitalization and the digital skills gap. We are now in the European Year of Youth, and we are transitioning for the European Year of Skills. So we have to put our generations in the on the first place. Due to the fact the pandemic, unfortunately, the premises for the future of work have a little bit gone vague, but also establish the opportunities in order for the framework for the future of work. This means how it should be, how it should look like. Should we have a 5-day week at our working place? Should we have 8 hours? Should we work remote when we are able to do that, or should we go traditionally to the office and do so? My part referred very much on the transitioning of the young generations that needed to adapt faster. Also, the public servants that needed to adapt even faster in order to respond to the crisis back then. So we have this new generation whose funds, and we have funds prepared for the digital skills and for the digital infrastructures in the RRF, funds that are aiming to prepare the new generations, funds that are able to prepare us for the digital skills that we need. As mentioned before, the digital skills will not be mandatory only for the fields of technology, such as emerging technologies, such as informatics, such as digitalization, that will be soon needed in each and every sector. Participation and meaningfulness. These are the two words that empower automation. By having RPA or automation within businesses would help, of course, employers and employees concentrate upon creative tasks and about content, because as I mentioned before, within the next decades, the content, the understanding, the deepened understanding, and the practical application of the skills would help us grow and would help us build upon the strategies and the ideas. So having an applied strategy would help us further to determine the benefits of automation and of the digitalization process. So it is essential to acknowledge that digital skills are also gained through non-formal educational process, aspect that is not very talked about within our sectors and our society. Some companies have even eliminated the degree requirements in the hiring process because they consider that while a young people or a young professional could learn the digital skills needed through a non-formal process, having a certified recommendation would not necessarily prove the level of the knowledge of a young person. But there are certain companies that began to apply a center of qualifications, and in order to verify the competencies of a young person that wants to get a job, and this is part of the future of work, because the employer will soon verify the qualification of the employee, not only on paper through certificates or qualifications, but also in real life. And how does a person respond to the needs of the company, and how does a young person basically offers input and offers added value in the company. Well, the impact of the pandemic on education will be better seen in long term. Of course, we know that the consequences are preposterous, but we cannot have a direct number on it. For sure, we'll see the consequences further on. So unequal access to the internet, lack of digital devices, and in the end, the educational process might make young people disconnect from the system, partially or entirely. At the same time, the learning gaps can still follow students in the labor market and create lower income opportunities for them. Technology's impact on education and learning. Well, there is also the perspective and opportunity for how the educational system can benefit from increased digital transformation. The concept of EdTech, suggesting non-conventional technology designed to deliver or augment learning, could be such an example. This raises the opportunity to introduce the technology-driven innovations to teaching and learning, the challenges of meaningful involvement of teachers and trainers while using digital tools. Well, the digital education plan has as its main priority enhancing digital skills and competencies. Now, more than ever, Europe needs an integrated approach to modernizing education by ensuring collaboration and partnerships across academia, companies, public authorities, NGOs, and other learning partners, as well as shaping accessible and inclusive programs together to deliver on the skills dimension of the digital targets. The pandemic raised many questions about the ability of the educational systems to help young generations, of course, to adapt to the crisis, and not only. It is critical to accelerate investments in learning and in order to minimize the educational gap between the business representatives and our young people. This should be our conclusions for today, that we need to create this context, this safe space in order to exchange good practices, good solutions through policy making, because it's very important to apply a practical level of achieving these targets. We need a plan for the next 7 years in order for the digital decade targets to be applied and to be evaluated conformly. And for this is the thought that we are living today, that we are asking decision makers, we are asking business representatives and civil society and academia to create a safe space for a debate, not only for a debate, but for the thoughts not to be only heard, but listened to, because it's very important to construct these strategies in order to try to achieve the digital decade targets through public policies and through recommendations. Thank you very much. My name is Francesca, and I'm coming from Europuls, and this is the event that we launched the white paper on automation for sustainable and durable growth. And thank you very much, UiPath, for being a partner. We are going to publish it online, and you can check it through our channels. Thank you very much.